Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to our question and answer live stream today. And we just want to send a shout out to all the fathers out there on Father's Day, of which there are many. Okay. So today we got a lot of good questions. Let's get started. This question is from Osaka Von Carmen. And it's a great question. I mean, it's really an important question because it's right to the heart of the matter. Could you summarize what we should know and be practicing on a regular basis up to this point? I'm not very clear on what I should be doing. I'm doing the three sons meditation and introspection. Is there anything else? Certainly, introspection was the only one that Daskalos insisted that everybody had to do. And he encouraged you to do, of course, the three sons. And those two are great. Those two are great. Three sons, best done first thing in the morning. Introspection, best done as you're just before you fall asleep at night. If you want to do something else, we suggest one other exercise midday. Again, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's a short thing. And that is you do something for somebody else. You know, we're talking about the etheric vitality and the meditations and the visualizations and how to benefit us, protect us, energize us. But it's good if you take some time in the middle of the day and do the same kind of visualization exercise, except for somebody else. You know, send them light, send them love, send them a prayer. It doesn't matter. But you do something for somebody else. That's what we suggest.
I agree with what Daniel said. You said you do introspection exercise and the three sons meditation every day. It's very good. And I feel myself introspection is very important exercise, which contains a lot of deep meaning behind this exercise. We will study it step by step why this meditation is so important. And one of the reason, just a tip of the reason why it's so important is God is meditating. God meditated. We call it the contemplated and created the universes. So our world, the whole world is created by God's meditation. So by doing the introspection exercise, we will be able to gain the viewpoint of what God, our nature, real nature are doing slowly. We are trying to obtain this perspective. That reason, this is only tip of the reason, one of the reasons why it's so important. And also, Sri San's meditation, it's very good. Please continue this exercise. Besides that, those meditation, I really would like to recommend. We have 5 golden keys, which is observation, concentration, and visualization, and meditation and introspection. Right. So I really would like to suggest you to do simple observation, concentration, visualization exercise. And please, as Daniel said, please uh, make your knowledge or practice it you practice it in your daily life. So, for example, when we create the three sons meditation in our body, please try to give it to others, send it to others to the world, something like this.
Cass, hi, Daniel. Looking forward to the next talk on the symbol of life. What he's referring to is the next Patreon lesson will be, we'll speak a little bit about the symbol of life, but we're going to do a live webinar here in a month or so that will lead in to what we hope we can do as a live seminar on the symbol of life. Here's from Chris. Dear Daniel Naki, I'm sorry for bringing up the V topic, which I research extensively, as I'm sure you do too. But what if I'm forced to take the vaccine? Oops, there I said it. Or else be banned from travel to see my family or work, for example. Would I be able to do self-healing to protect myself from any long-term damage? or if my loved ones are forced to get it? Is there a particular exercise I could do to daily mitigate the risk of the side effects or to assist them too if it comes to that? Yeah, I mean, that's what they're trying to do, is to force us to take it by saying, oh, you can't travel to see your family, you can't go on vacations, but if you get the vaccine, you can travel. Be so careful. I really want to encourage everybody to stop taking only the mainstream media's narrative on this subject, but to do research yourself. There's a lot going on that is not in the mainstream media right now, but it will come out. Now, what to do if you're forced to do it? If I was you, I would just hold off as long as possible until those forces that are trying to overthrow let's say, the illusion come to bear. And we're seeing more and more of that all the time. We see that now they realize, oh, yes, it was man-made. And, oh, Fauci did send money, 600 million, 900 million. I don't know how much he sent. It's a lot of millions to them. And they thanked him for him helping donate to the Wuhan lab to make this thing. That's just now coming out. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's just starting to come out about that because his emails are now available to everybody. But what you can do, what you should do, is exactly what we're talking about all the time. It's what we should all be doing all the time. And that is to raise our vibrations, to do these meditations, to study the teachings, to try to find out who and what we are and what's reality. What is reality? Well, I would think a lot of the population right now is the fear-induced reality of some sort of pandemic, the pandemic narrative. So we want to come out of that. We want to come into clear understanding. So it's always raising your own consciousness. It's always purifying your personality. It raises you to a level that will, when things start to go around, you will attract the best condition you possibly can have. Now, I know that's not telling you specific things to do. And certainly if you are forced to get the vaccine, just keep doing what we're doing. That's all you can do. That's really all you can do. You have something? Oh, here's the second point. Lastly, you said not to fear. And I try hard not to, but I struggle with worrying about all that sometimes. And when I worry, I'm strengthening the elementals by worrying. Can you speak about some forces of light, good, that we can join with to flood the dark light? Thank you from my deepest heart, Aki. I can't express in words what you mean for my life. Anyway.
Thank you very much for mentioning.
Yeah, you're right. When we start worrying about these things, we're feeding the very thing that's harming us. When we want to just get rid of it, if you start to worry about it, just drop it. Don't even complete the thought on it. Just drop it as fast as you can, because and try to replace it. Of course, replace it. Say, I am God's child of God. I am protected by God. I am His child. Something positive. You pick it, whatever resonates with you, but that will overwrite the negative imprint of the negative elemental.
I would like to answer for the whatever happened, nothing happened. There is a word, nothing happened by chance, which means our planetary logos knows everything about each one of us, which means whatever we are given as the event or the condition, we have to work on the field just right ahead of us. So even within a family or within the group, each one of us will have the different experience because of one same factor. So as an exercise part, please trust your Holy Spirit and archangels working in your three bodies. Please trust and connect with it. As the exercise, In this case, about the vaccine, uh, please visualize white color. Trust. The white color means we trust the Holy Spirit and Archangel when we don't know what to do, you know. And each condition, each person has a different condition. So visualizing a white color, just give it everything to Holy Spirit and archangels in our bodies and give trust. And the Three Suns meditation, visualizing the whole body as white light, the three colors, that works. And also light shield, it works. And the combination of light shield and the 5-pointed star exercise, 5-pointed star shield, which I released this week, it works too. Please try and trust archangels and the Holy Spirit.
Just add a little bit on that. Yeah, all that stuff helps. But your own archangels that are in charge of caring for your body, they could change it if they wanted to, if they were allowed to, by the law of cause and effect. So this is what I'm saying. You purify yourself, make yourself better so you're worthy of their help, so that you appreciate their help. If you go around living stupidly, don't expect them to come and offset the effects that you've created in your own life. And that could include the vaccine. And now, I know we're not all in a position to say no to it. Don't ever refuse it. Just decline it, because it's an experimental thing. And, I think we're going to find out just what's really going on with that pretty soon.
And nothing is too late. When we work on right now, then to cleanse our bodies or change our way of thinking, then our future will be changed. So we can work on it now. May I answer for his second question about?
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course.
Chris, about the fear. About the fear or anxiety, you say not to, but rather than not to, when we try not to do something, then our subconscious memorize that last part, imprint this part, the last part. So rather than not to do something, just neglect what you don't want to do. Just keep neglecting it. We have a meditation, whatever comes in front of us, we try to neglect. This ability, neglecting something which we don't welcome, and concentrate on what we want to concentrate, is one of the spiritual ability and the growth. So please try to develop this ability, welcome what we want to create or welcome, and we neglect what we don't want to focus on. Please try this exercise, and instead of thinking about it, just keep neglecting it. Create something you want to do using your willpower. I want to, or I will do this way. So I think this works.
Next one's from Sarah. I was wondering if you could give me some clarification on the process of new souls. Panda Yoda mentioned that there was sort of a kindergarten on the noetical level to climatize new souls to our world. I'm just wondering how their personalities would look, because they haven't created elementals yet, which is the building block of our personality. So they would not have any personality when they reincarnate for the first time. Well, you can't reincarnate for the first time. You can incarnate for the first time. And I think that's the question that's being asked here, is what's it like when they come in for the first incarnation? Yeah, okay, climatize at the noetical level is good. Yes, they come in. But see, they haven't had any karma yet. They are not under the law of cause and effect. Once they incarnate, they're under the law of cause and effect, and then they cause bad karma, good karma, and then it gets all mixed up, and they keep reincarnating, trying to pay off the bad karma, and hopefully create better karma as they go forward. Um, and so those they look perfect, but they're not self-realized. The whole process of incarnation, it becomes self-realized. So these first souls that come to any particular planet, the life stream of that soul group that comes to comes to the planet, they have one center. They just have one center, the heart center. They don't have the three centers. So when they come to Earth, one of the reasons what we're trying to do is to help balance and activate all three centers. So we have this pink light here, but out of that, we can say comes up a golden light. And out of that comes down a blue light for the solar plexus, golden light for the head. So those all three need to be balanced. That's our work, to balance those and keep those in balance as we go through our incarnations. Let's see if I got to what did they look like? Yeah, they would look like a star at the higher levels. They would only have one chakra. So, but when they when they come out of the noetical and they hit and this is in every incarnation, every reincarnation, they hit the psychical plane, and Dasclos describes it as this is like a big waiting room where everybody's waiting to incarnate. And how does the incarnation work? How does that work? Well, the lords of karma, the archangels, they are the ones that decide who goes to who. And it's all based on the vibrations of that person's, the lessons they've learned, the lessons they haven't learned, to the parents that are going to raise them and their lessons they have learned and haven't learned. So it all works together. Now, at this time in the world, it's very hard for the archangels to decide what sex sometimes in a person, because most human beings have to go through a experience of learning the nurturing side of the feminine and the strong side of the male, and you go back and forth in different incarnations. So that's how that works. So yeah, you say they don't have any personality for the first incarnation. It's sort of right, because they haven't used mind as thought and emotion. So the moment they hit the planet and they start to become aware, even a little bit, they start to use the mind and emotions, and they start to have experiences, and those experiences create exactly what they need. And here's something I wanted to say. It has nothing to do with this, but we're all having a certain lifetime. We all have our challenges. We all have our hardships. We all have our joys, right? Everything that's happening to you right now is like a recipe for your spiritual evolution. You can't kick away your circumstances. You have to look at those and figure out what God is trying to show you. What's your life lesson in that, and get it. You just can't just forget about them and go just running forward. You'll be brought back. Dasclos used to say, a deserter is always returned to the place he deserted. So in a lifetime, you say, I'm not doing that, I run away, and you run away from whatever the life lesson was. Well, next lifetime you're going to come back, or a future lifetime, you're going to keep coming back and keep coming back and say, okay, I'm going to learn this lesson because I don't want to do this.
Exactly.
I think you have something to say on that one?
Yes, I do.
Please do.
About the first incarnation of the human being, yes, that's right. At the beginning, before the first incarnation, we all are expressing a perfect nature of life, nature of God, perfectly. But when we incarnate the first time on this material planet Earth, we have, as he said, only one center, the heart center. And step by step in each incarnation, we develop our psychonoetical body. The material body is given from at the beginning as a perfect body, but our psychonoetical body is not developed. We call it amorphous body, but it's shaped like a planet Earth, round shape, but all in one at the heart center. But the more we develop our psychonoetical body, the noetic Daniel says, to the head, and the material, the material body, sky blue sphere, is going down to the solar plexus. So, which means in one incarnation, in each incarnation, we create the structure of the symbol of life, step by step, shape the perfect psychonoetical body. And once we reach the perfect shape, it's called self-realization. So the first incarnation goes like this. And at the beginning, they have only instinctive subconsciousness. As he said, they are not self-realized. And at the end, we fully self-realized. So this is our trip of our incarnation.
I just want to say one more thing about that. She says, I wonder how their personalities would look like. Well, we described that. But how do their personalities look like through the process of reincarnation? Once they've come and they started the process of going through the law of cause and effect, what do they look like then? It depends who's looking. If a master's looking, they look like, she said, amorphous, but in this case, since you are shaping emotions and thoughts in a previous lifetime, when you come back in, you're affected by that. So what's your personality look like? Your personality is nothing more than your psychonoetical body. All your thoughts, emotions, intentions, motivations, all that is what you call your personality. And to an enlightened master, they would see kind of a lumpy amorphous sac. You develop some, but it's not balanced. It's too mental, not emotional, whatever it is, it's out of balance. So it looks like a sack of potatoes. Let's just say it like that. Just kind of not shaped very well. What's it look like to the person themselves, and what's it look like to the person who knows them? Well, it looks like exactly what they look like on Earth, because they have your vibrations and they have a what we call a residual image of you. And you have a residual image of yourself. So that's what what you would perceive, and people who know you perceive. But a master would see it otherwise. Now,
one question.
Oh, yeah, we did. Bios, sorry. Can a researcher of truth also be a member of another organization? Anthroposophy. Thank you. Yes, of course. And we can't learn in Earth without, I don't think we can learn in any world's existence without comparison. Comparison is what helps us know. Now, comparison is like, you have to be very careful about this, because if you start putting a lot of stuff, you just get like a goulash of teachings in your head, and it won't help you very much. But if you're studying a certain teaching, like the Researchers of Truth or Steiner's work, whatever, and then you compare it to each other, then you can do some learn. Then you can get some value out of it. But just be careful about getting theoretical congestion by taking in too much information from too many sources. Okay, please go. Please.
Bios, I feel this way. It's just like our seeking the truth. This is one way of thinking, my way of thinking. So if you like, please take it. The seeking the truth is something like climbing the high mountain, the higher than the Mount Everest. So at the beginning, we have many, and also we have many ways of seeking the truth. And if it's the right pathway, definitely the pathway leads us to the top summit, which means self-realization. But at the beginning, we have many way of approaching and comparing, as Daniel says, comparing and never criticizing other way of teaching, but comparing and learn deeper and deeper. But the more we climb up higher, if we climb up the Mount Everest, the more we become higher, we have to choose. Once we choose one pathway, it's not the easy way. So we have to decide which way at a certain point after comparing, and after you decide by your own willpower, please go deeper and deeper, have a full connection because they are waiting from above. So to get the full harness with them who are trying to help us, try to attune with them the way which you picked. This is my advice.
This one's from Daniela. Hi, dear Aki and Daniel. Why is this new virus, man-made or not, allowed to be present? Why is it suffocating the sick people? What's the deeper meaning of the people dying because they can't breathe? Thank you for your love and work. Oh, I wish there's so much I wish I could tell you about all this. And I hope to be able to tell you much more in the future. But for now, let's just talk in generalities. This whole virus thing and the V thing it's a big test to mankind. It's a huge test. It's been slated a long time ago. We all have to pass through this thing. And what kind of a test is it? I think, quite honestly, you could call it an IQ test. To find the truth. We're researchers of truth. We're supposed to research for truth. We're not supposed to be listening to Google tell us what the truth is. Christ didn't say, listen to what the others tell you. He said to seek it and find it for yourself. That means each and every person. We can't just take it from any source. You listen to us, listen and study, question, don't just take everything. You have to research it for it to really integrate into you. And then it becomes like this rich spiritual muscular system in you. Yeah. So the question about why is this test ends up with people suffocating, they can't breathe? Well, think about what the air is. Earth, air, fire, and water, right? Water, we know, represents emotions. What's the air represent? It represents thought, clear mental thought. And we are being fed a lot of not clear thoughts through the media, confusing thoughts. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Vaccines man-made, no, it's not man-made. That's a conspiracy theory. That's what they used to say when people researched it on their own when this first started. Well, it was man-made in Wuhan. Oh no, and they threw you off of YouTube, threw you off of Facebook, right? What's that about? Why are they doing that? So it's a big test to see if we can penetrate through the illusion that's being placed on us. There's a lot of false narratives going on, and you go out there and try to find it. It's hard to find the truth because of the false narrative is so abundant. You have to get off of Google. You have to get onto DuckDuckGo. They don't filter results. It's like Google does. So it just really needs research to understand what's really going on now. And we don't have to be afraid. This is a beautiful thing. And like Laura's daughter, Chloe, she said it so perfectly. She said it was like people going to a play. Like the whole world would be an audience and not an audience, but the whole play and the audience. So some people are choosing to participate in the play and others are choosing to observe it. Those who haven't, it's just that. We'll just leave it at that. So, yeah. It's the noetical. The breath represents a noetical, represents air. So, Aki-san?
And also in the air, we have plenty of etheric vitality, life force. Until this event, the corona event, majority of human beings has been living subconsciously, seeking our own aim, own goal, own dream, or richness and materialism. Most of the people are seeking these kind of desire or goals. But I understand this way, Daniela. What is the most important things for us, for human beings to live, to exist? The God gave us the homework to understand what is the most important things for us to exist in here. It's breathing. Without breathing, we will study have many levels of breathing, not only etheric breathing in this dimension. You know what we are doing, what we think breathing. We have many different way of breathing, but the breathing is the most important thing for us to exist. So I understand that God gave us to think about it. Oh, what is the most important thing for you guys?
Mark has a question here. It says, when I practice spinning a ball of energy between my rotating hands, he means rotating the ball between his hands, to gain control of the three ethers, I have little trouble visualizing the light, the imprinted ether, and the spinning motion, the kinetic ether, but I have great difficulty in feeling the aesthetic ether of the ball of spinning light. Can you give me some helpful practice to make the registration of the aesthetic ether achieve? How can I feel it better, basically, what he's asking. And I say the first thing is to feel your vibrations. You know, most of the people, they're not even centered in their material body. They're centered in their emotions or thoughts. They're always thinking about what's happening rather than being here now, being in the body. That's what the first thing Daskos would say in the Stoa lessons at the end. He'd do a little meditation. Feel being in the body. He kept saying that. Feel being in the body, because that's where the energy is, right? That's where the power is. And that's where the aesthetic ether you're going to feel, basically. Of course, it's a psychical vibration, but you can feel it in your own aura. It has an influence on the material body. So I would suggest just simply getting used to feeling you. So you know what your vibrations are, so that when you start to feel the vibrations of somebody else or visualization, you can sense the difference. Right now, it's probably kind of confused for you, but you try to just find out your own normal tone, your own normal vibration, and then try to just feel the ball. Now, when we do these exercises with these visualizations, they eventually become so clear, so like computer perfect, and they're things full of light and so real that when you feel the aesthetic ether of them, you feel a sense of it being solid because it becomes so real. So it's just a matter of practice, and develop it. But I would suggest you start by trying to compare how you feel compared to what you can feel off there. Surely, just work it. You just have to practice it. Then you'll start to feel a little something at first, and just go into that.
I want to continue what he says. Yes, and the more we develop, and when we reach a self-realization level, when we visualize it, we can materialize everything. Whatever we visualize, instantly we materialize. The things which we visualize will be materialized. And answering to this question, in the exercise, in the meditation, probably you can hear pay attention to or concentrate on leg or whatever. When we concentration, the word concentration is the key. When you hear the concentrate on something, when we concentrate on something, instantly you start to use the feeling giving ether, aesthetic ether. So concentration, concentrate on what you are working more and more, then you are, which means that you are training aesthetic ether, feeling giving ether.
And I would just say this too, Mark. I mean, I'm sure you've had the experience if you've been around somebody that's angry, but they're not telling you. Don't you feel that vibration? When someone loves you, don't you feel that? Well, you're feeling the aesthetic ether right there. Kathy asked, what does it mean to try and storm heaven? What activities fall under this try to storm heaven? trying to storm heaven just means trying to force your personality's will, your egotism, we'll just say, your egotism's will to do whatever in the spiritual realm. And people don't realize this, but so many people's spiritual practice has been hijacked by their egotism, especially when you don't do introspecting to catch your own ways your egotism tricks you. And this brings me to another thing. Dasko said there were two books we should read: New Testament and the book of our own lives. In other words, introspecting on your own life. But I say there's another book. It's just so important. But this book, you have to write it yourself. And this book is called, it's the same title for everybody, Lies My Egotism Told Me. If you would write down all the different lies and tricks and distractions and dissuasions that your egotism is presenting you that prevents you from going on. Back to the storming the thing. The egotism sometimes say, well, I want that. So what would that mean? Just for to try to storm heaven, try to get to these higher levels of consciousness. Drugs, magic. These are ways trying to storm heaven. And Christ said, no, you're going to get thrown back out. You have to enter the straight gate, which means the purification of your emotions and your thoughts and the mastery of these ethers, really. So anything that's trying to force your will on any situation, you are trying to storm heaven, even if it's a mundane situation. You're trying to force your will on it. And that is the big obstacle in most people's life, is that their egotism wants it a certain way. They don't want this, they want this. So the whole life of a common person is they're chasing after the thing they want and they're pushing away the things they don't want. And that's especially true if you ever try to counsel anybody. You talk to them, you can also very often find where their egotism has a hold of them, and they will just resist and argue and everything because the egotism does not want that light to penetrate. So the most important part is to kind of do it from a natural place. Don't try to force it. Whatever you do, if you're trying to achieve a higher consciousness and want to know yourself, want to know your whatever more and more, you make the request, put the intention out there, but then turn it over and say, thy will be done, because God knows what you need, when you need it, way more than you do. So don't try to storm the kingdoms of heaven.
Yes. For me, without the cleansing, without the cleansing and balancing our three bodies, which means that without the introspecting enough, when we work on or when we seek, for example, Kundalini exercise to activate the centers, especially the genital, center number 10, genital chakras, centers. Try to activate these energies without cleansing our three bodies is the most dangerous. Whatever, something positive we feel, we are developed and feeling superior feeling, or develop, I'm so developed because I can see this, I can do that. It is a great trap. So as Daniel said at the beginning, introspection in this teaching system, introspection is the most important thing. And do goodness, whatever we learn as the teaching or practice, provided, serve it to other people, express the teaching through you. This is the most important and the easiest and the shortest way to develop our spirituality in the safest way. Yes, sorry. And when we manifest the teaching or practice to other people with love, then automatically we are shaping our symbol of life. We are developing. So don't worry, we don't need to rush into the exercise or gain the power things. Please don't seek the power. Rather than that, do goodness to others.
Gustavo, his question is, I've been increasingly waking up on the other side, fully aware that I'm in the dream world. Every time I become conscious, I try to travel to meet specific people like Daskalos. But that does not happen. The dreamscape remains the same. Or I need to travel it by walking as if on Earth. Does this mean I'm still within my shell? What am I missing? Yes, it means you're still in your shell. Because, well, first of all, travel on the other side is not accomplished like it is here. We don't go anywhere. It all comes to us. Here, as a little kid, you're in a car, you ride along, you have this feeling that everything's coming towards you as you see the car. But you learn that, okay, I'm really moving in space. So I'm moving through those things. But on the psychic world, it's exactly reversed. You don't go someplace. If you think about Daskalos, he just shows up. You think about an elephant, it's going to show up. And you probably have had dreams like that, where you've had a dream and you think about something, the next thing you know, you see that thing. That's because you're creating. And the idea of walking, that means you're on the lower planes in your shell, because nobody walks on the psychic plane in the higher planes. In fact, it's more like Casper the Ghost. It's gliding. Like you just kind of lean and you just go. So if you think you're walking, you're totally in your shell, because there is no walking. There is no space. So where are you walking to? I know it's a very hard concept compared to what we know here, but nonetheless, that's what it is. So let's see. Yeah, I would suggest that don't try traveling anywhere. Don't try pulling Daskalos to you or you going to Daskalos. Try attuning. Just sit there and see if you become conscious in your shell, then sit there and kind of meditate and think about Daskalos. Bring his face to your mind. You can hear his vibration you remember his vibration of his voice. You bring all that to you, that becomes an attunement that makes the connection for you. Makes the connection for you.
Yes, Gustavo, I have same opinion. Please try not to do anything. When you try to do something, which means you are desiring and wishing, the willpower and the desire is different. So I would suggest you, why don't you try to attune yourself, love, which you can manifest, you can express a possible high, possible close to nature of God, or recite our prayer, seven promise, attuning yourself deeper in this teaching, and just wait what's going to happen. We need a kind of empty dish to receive and experience something. If we are full of desires, oh, I want to do, the dish is, your dish is full. So please empty your dish to receive. And empty mind, getting rid of thought, emotion, just attune yourself with something high in you.
Bertold is asking, hello, dears. So excited for another Q&A. In the lecture on the symbol of life, you mentioned the 5 levels of consciousness. Are there parallel or similar 5 levels of awareness? There's several questions here, so I'm just going to answer that one first. No. There's actually 7 levels of consciousness. A human being only has to pass through 5. We get the first 2 gifted. So there's these levels of consciousness that we're trying to raise our consciousness to higher and higher levels. But the self-awareness is one thing. There's not levels of self-awareness, but there are degrees of expression. So it's just all about how much self-awareness you're expressing, not a level you've hit of self-awareness. Next question is, you spoke of the 3 chambers of etheric vitality. How can we charge each of them? Well, we don't. The archangels provide the daily bread for that. What we do is one of those chambers, we populate it. We populate it with our elementals. And those elementals draw in energy from the other chambers. As I said, one chamber just gives us the energy we need to live every day and move around, talk, and all that stuff. And the other chamber is just nobody gets access to that. That's totally under the domain of the Holy Spirit, and it provides the energy for the replacing the cells in the body, mending bones, just the creative aspect of a human body. Yeah. So what you can do to charge them, if you want to call it that, is to have a moratorium on negative elementals. Just have positive elementals, and in those elementals that fill that chamber of your subconscious have higher and higher vibrations, which benefits you, of course. So just try to create only loving elementals, only loving, kind feelings, only clear, creative thoughts, and you'll charge that thing with a higher vibration, that chamber. And let's see. What is the meaning of the Gnostics and Essenes put behind the word archons? Could you please devote some time and explain? On a Facebook post or on a Patreon post, the meaning of the Sermon on the Mount. Oh, that's a big one. Okay. Thank you very much, and love to you. Well, love to you too, Berkel. This is a big one. What you find in the Nag Hammadi Library, these are the books that were banned from the Bible that they found buried. They speak of the archons, and I think Steiner speaks of them too. And if you try to understand, this is where the Gnostics and the Researchers of Truth do not agree at all, because the Gnostics are saying the archons are the builders, the creators of the universe. Well, we know those are the archangels, but they also say negative things about these, like they're bad, and they've created this world that we're living in, and it shouldn't have happened. It's a mistake. That's nonsense. Nothing can happen that's outside of God's plan. Nothing. God's everywhere. Where could there be something outside of that? Oh, these guys tricked God and made the worlds of existence. That's just nonsense. So we don't believe in it that way. But they're I think they're presented in two different ways. I think something's happened. It's that teaching has gotten a little contracted, because definitely the archons didn't violate God's law and create the worlds of existence, and here we are suffering in them. It's nothing like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Sermon on the Mount. Yeah.
Mm.
How much time we got? Sermon on the Mount. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And he did this at I don't know. He started out very young. At 16, he was doing lots of miracles. It's not written in the Bible. They only write down the last 3 years, because the first part he was just with the Essenes, and finally the Essenes said, look, you have to share this with our brothers, the Jews. Now, the Jews thought of the Essenes as heretics, and they were stoning them to death anytime they could. But the Essenes really had the teachings. They really loved everybody, even their enemy. So I think we could take a whole seminar, a whole class on just the Sermon on the Mount. Let's do that. Let's take more time, because I can't really address it.
And it's worth go deeper.
Yeah, to go deeper in it. Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. They call the Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount, I think, right?
Yes.
Beatitudes, right?
Yes, Beatitude.
And then let's see. Yeah. Okay. You want to say something?
From the next time, maybe let's go one by one. I have to go.
Oh,
Yes, each section has the very good. Yes. Going back to the self-awareness, we have the development of the consciousness, development of our consciousness, and also we have the development of self-awareness, the degree.
Degree of expression of it.
I'm going to say, don't know more. So we have the degrees of the development of our self-awareness. We basically classify into 4 levels, which is the first is the personality level, and the next one is the permanent personality level, and the next is pure soul, and the next one is the spirit level. So like that way, we develop it. And we call it all self-awareness. But in the middle, level of the personality, we call I-ness. In the meditation, many times we see I-ness. I-ness is the point, observing everything. So we develop the degree of our self-awareness according to this axis, central point of the I-ness. And the last point which we reach is the I-ness as the spirit. And this is the next one. Yes, he answered about the chambers, 3 chambers, how to charge the 3 chambers of the etheric vitality. He answered most of it. Together with creating the positive elementals, please do not exhaust your etheric vitality by creating unnecessary, miscellaneous thought and emotions. And the last one about the Simona on the mountain, yes, beatitude, as we said, it's a very deep meaning, so we need days to explain what it is, and we have meditation for that. And we can take a look, we can read about the beatitude on the Christ book, chapter 14. It says it in detail. So please take a look if you want to know more. And at last, the most important thing in the beatitude is to love God in us, and love God and all other human beings. This is the ultimate teaching of our teaching system. And Christ said, when we learn the Christ teaching, this teaching cast a fire to the human beings, to the family, to the group, and that some people really listen to him, but some people rejected. So what Christ taught is not just creating a peace. The teaching of the Christ cast a fire, and each one of us would react different way. So let's study more deeper. This topic is very beautiful. So let's have some webinar or seminar
let's do something
on this. Yes, and meditate deeper on that.
Hi, Jeff. Jeff's asked, could you speak a little about how Dasclus came to the information he used in writing his book, Joshua, Emmanuel the Christ? In the notes of the editors, it states that this book is an account of events witnessed by a Christian mystic. Does this imply Dasclus was in a material body at the time of Christ? Or did he use other means, such as the Akashic record? Do you have any related stories that you could share? Yeah, it's both. He did indeed share a lifetime with Christ. It's like he saw him. And it's his role is written in the book. I mean, his character, his personality at that time is written in the Joshua Emmanuel book, but he doesn't ever tell anybody publicly who he was. But he was definitely there. And what he couldn't do, he could read the Akashic records, so he could see the parts where that personality didn't get to see. So he used both to write the book. And where'd it go? Okay. Yeah. One of the, in the last years, he wrote that book. It was really toward the end of his life, and he never published it while he was living. But when we would go to visit him while he was writing the book, it was so great. He would just be sitting there and he'd just come out and tell you the story about this thing. And he had such personal, beautiful accounts of it. But What else could we tell them about that?
Can I take over?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. Please take a look the Christ book. I didn't bring it. We have a Joshua Emmanuel Christ book. Please read it. And in that book, there is a boy called Yasonai. The spelling is Yassounai. Yasonai. There is a boy called Yasonai. That boy is the incarnation of the spirit soul of Daskalus. At that time, he was a 13 years old boy, and feeling Daskalus is one of the incarnation. Please read the book, then you can enjoy it in a different angle. Okay.
Oh, ask. In my spiritual search, I've come across several Western masters, such as Guruja and Master Peter Nunova, I don't know, and Rudolf Steiner. Did Daskalus ever give any assessment of these masters? Is it all right to study them in parallel with Daskalus? Very often they say the same thing, but in different ways, which I find very inspiring. But of course, they also contradict at some points. The only one he really talked about was Rudolf Steiner because he had a connection with Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner had already passed over, but on a couple occasions, Rudolf Steiner came in his astral body and they had experiences. We don't have time to talk about those right now. But this is what he says about any teaching, any master, anything. They cover so much distance from where we are to the absolute truth. No one's got the absolute truth living on earth. They can't express it. It's too low a vibration to express the absolute truth. You have to be one with God to have the absolute truth. So what we're doing is steps by step, extending the ladder of relative truth. And that's what these teachers are doing. They're all teaching you something. And a lot of times there are very strong contradictions and very strong agreements. Because why? Why is that? I mean, we're all talking about the same reality, right? Why are all these stories different? Why do some conflict and some say different things? It's the same exact reason why when the explorers during the Age of Discovery came to the United States, America, they all drew maps and went back to Europe. None of the maps matched because each person is drawing the map or giving the teaching from their own perspective. And that not everybody notices everything. Somebody knows, look at that, lots of trees there. I'm going to draw lots of trees on the map. Or this place, they do it differently because they are interested or they attracted or they notice some specific aspect. And it's the same thing about the teachers. They're all doing this. All of them are ascending the ladder of relative truth. And that's why we don't get the things. And yes, it is okay to compare them, like I said before, but don't get lost in it. That's the way Daskalus said. He said the bees and the researchers of Truth Hive are free to visit the flowers of gardens of neighbors. This means other teachings, but they always come back to their own hive. So once you pick one, compare the others to that rather than just thinking they're all equal. You have to find this interconnection to it. There's something in you that knows when you're reading the truth and when it's not. Now, if your head's all caught up in it, you may not feel this deeper knowledge. So just be wise while you're comparing. Okay, son? Okay.
Why don't you have the drawer, the separate drawers in the chest, like in the chest? No, the teaching. The important thing is, Daskalus says we should not mix up all the teaching. We can compare, but we should not mix them up. So why don't we have some little drawers, sorting, integrating everything in small drawers. And once we decided, this is the pathway for me, then take it. And then proceed deeper. This is our suggestion.
Anthony is asking, he says on the last page of the Symbol of Life book, but I don't find it there in mine, but there's an image of what looks like the temple doorway with stairs leading to an entrance. Under this image, it's labeled Dendra. Could you give us some explanation of what this means? And if the Hathors were ancient aliens who occupied these temples? No. If so, what's their purpose? Uh, I don't think we can. I don't think you should say the deities of the Egyptians are aliens. The whole Egyptian race really comes from Atlantis. You'll also notice in the Symbol of Life book, there's a picture of a place called Edfu. Edfu is the only place on Earth where there's still a written account of Atlantis. Of course, they didn't call it Atlantis. And they talked about it's the same story. It gets struck, it sinks in a day, all that stuff. They have it written there, and they have it from these the Hierophants just kept this story alive. And the temple down, they built it back up or something, but they always kept this story in there. And they got it. Of course, the Egyptian race was started by those people who realized the fate of Atlantis because of their misuse of powers and all the stories you already know. So they spread out. They go to the Yucatan. They go to India. They go to Great Egyptian place. But only then it wasn't much there. They developed it into what it is now. And they were gods. They called them gods because they were gods compared to the normal people. But they weren't. I mean, we're all gods, but they had the ability of the creative ether at that time. So they could rain down fire on people. They could do lots of stuff that the average person couldn't understand. So they labeled them as gods. Now, Dendra is a very interesting place because you're going to see at Dendra stone melted, just completely melted. And it takes something like a constant heat of 5,000 degrees to melt that. And of course, the ancient Egyptians, nobody had that in the past, had that power physically to make that kind of temperature, but they could with the creative ether. They could rain down the creative ether. So you'll see this place where the stone is melted. Now, a bunch of researchers, David, Andres, Maria, Aki, and I, and Carolina, we went down to Peru and into Bolivia. And along the way, there's at least one Inca temple. It's the same thing. It's just these granite stones, these dense granite stones, just melted on this just one area. So it wasn't some blow that blew it up. It's some super heat in a localized area that melted it. Now, I'm going to present this. We're going to present this. I have a picture. We're going to present these kind of things in the webinar we're going to do next, where we're going to talk about Atlantis and Lemuria and the great ancient civilizations. Okay, I said something. It's just, I don't, the editors, Dascos didn't pick that. The editors picked that, which is Rudy and Elian and Panayota. They picked that picture. And I never heard Dascos mention it, but it's a very important place because it shows that there was something really going on back in ancient times where they had much more. And we're not given the true story of civilization. I hope that changes, but they were way more advanced in terms of the use of creative ether, not necessarily more psychonoetically developed. They still had impurities, and that's why they used this stuff to fight with. They were fighting with this creative ether, and that's part of the reason why everything went down. Sure.
Beyond our imagination or beyond our thoughts, the history of this planet Earth was maintained and created and maintained by the extraterrestrial beings. So, and the history, what we learn, study in the school, is not really the truth. Our history of this planet is much, much, much older and influenced by these kind of developed self-realized beings. Also, they are very developed beings can handle the sound, changing the vibration. They can travel by changing the sound. We can't say the relationship why we placed the picture of the end of the Symbol of Life book, but definitely, yes, definitely. I'm receiving, so please. Yeah, sorry. So by changing the sound, they travel. Like that way, it's beyond our imagination about the history of the planet Earth.
Nice. Andrea asked about clairvoyance. How can we know how reliable is what we see? Is there a technique according to Dasko's teaching? And why people that are not exactly an example of good behavior have such a skill? That's a good question. The technique is trial and error, really, because you'll get visions. Oh, I got a good vision, and it won't be real. So we have to learn to discriminate between the visions. And the only way we can do that is when we first get a vision, we don't know if it's real or it's somebody sent it or what's happening. We don't really understand that, most people. And so you'll learn if you work on this, you'll learn how to determine. And one of the best ways of techniques of noticing whether this is an authentic clairvoyant experience or maybe it's a clairvoyant experience, but you're coloring it with your own subconsciousness. So the thing I like to look for, did the vision have something that I wanted or expected or hoped for? Then it's suspect. I mean, if it's neutral, you go, oh wow, I never thought of that. That's a pretty good sign that it's authentic because it's not coming from your subconscious if it seems new to you, kind of thing. The why do some people have the ability, psychic abilities, basically clairvoyance, but they're not all that psychonatically developed? That's a very important question because there are entities that love to use people who want to be psychics and want to tell people stuff. They whisper stuff to them, but because the personality of that person is developed, they have no idea who's giving that message. It's an unverified energy from an unknown source, really. And a lot of times these entities, they can see farther than you can because they're not in the material world. They will tell you the truth. They will help you. They will fix things. They will do healings even for you, just so you start to listen to them more. They're very cunning. That's what I said. They have like 1,000 times more intelligence than human beings, some of them. So we have to be so careful and so discerning. That's why we're always hammering the point, clean your heart, clear your mind. Because if you have that kind of clarity and you vibrate like that, they won't approach you because that's like light to them and they get burnt by light like that. So just be very, very careful. So some people seem they can be great things. And this is one thing that happens. And there's a mathematical proportion given for this, is that when an entity like that gives you something, gives you some knowledge or some help, it's going to come back at some point and say, well, I gave you something, now they're going to take something from you. And they take as much as 100 times more than they give. And that's why you'll see a lot of these psychics, when they get old and after they've been used a lot, they get kind of sickly or they don't, their condition degrades because these entities are taking back something they gave them, energy they gave them. Okay.
Whatever we experience, not only clairvoyant things, clairaudient, clairsentient, whatever we experience, we have the scale, which we call the divine nature, equilateral triangle. One nature is love. One nature is peace, power. One nature is wisdom. Whatever we experience, please adapt this scale and place yourself in the middle of this equilateral triangle of the divine nature and observe whatever your personality experienced as the God's eye, as the viewpoint of God. And as he said, examine and try to find a proof or evidence after that. Try not to be too much encouraged by the experience or discouraged. Not like that. Keep yourself always neutral, center point of the divine nature as best as possible. We can do it perfectly from at the beginning, but we can try to be this perfect harmony and observe whatever we experience, hear, see, touch, whatever, and find a proof one by one. Then it will be the encouragement to go forward.
John's asking, how would Daskalos physically meditate? Would he meditate in a typical cross-leg position, half lotus, full lotus, or in a chair? Would he go into exmatosis before this out-of-body travel? Before he would he lie down flat or sitting in a recliner chair? Yeah, I'll tell you, but before I tell you that, in his previous incarnation, just before Daskalos, he trained himself to meditate standing up. He could even go to sleep standing up and stay standing in a position. Daskalos like to try all kinds of things. But in this lifetime, I'll tell you, he didn't sit cross-legged. He actually said this: I find meditation very low, very low. His abilities were so much greater than what we can get through meditation. So he would go beyond meditation because meditation's in duality. So he would go into attunement with something first and eventually to one. But in attunement, he could attune to something, know everything about it without meditating on it. Now we have to start meditating and work our way up. And he says, it doesn't matter. Sit in a chair, lay down, whatever you want to do, whatever is most comfortable for you. So sometimes he would just be sitting in the room with you and he'd just close his eyes and he would be gone. One time, I don't know if any of you remember the Iraq War I, when Hussein gassed this village of Kurds. Now Daskalos was a master and he was in charge of this whole Mideastern area. And he was sitting there one time, everybody sitting around, he just closed his eyes. 5 minutes later, he comes back. My God, he's gassing the Kurds. And so he went there. He was called to go there. And he came back and reported. Next day in the newspaper, you hear about it. There's many times where he did that and he would tell you something. Next day it'd show up in the newspaper. So it's proved that he was really doing what he was saying, of course. Do you want to go and answer that one before we go on?
Sir.
No, I didn't answer that. By location, yeah. You want to start now and I'll do that.
Okay. Let me answer.
Yeah, let you. That's what I was saying.
It's simple. For me, Daskalos' level, life itself is meditation. So everything is meditation for his level.
The second part was, can you share anything about what Daskalos said about bilocation? Yeah, to go out of your body into another body, there's this, you feel dual at first. You feel like in your body, but you also start to feel your awareness going into this other form, other body, higher body, say it like that. So, but his point was, how can you do that if you can't hold your attention on one thing? Everybody close your eyes. Hold your attention on a candle flame without being disturbed, just for a couple minutes. Don't a lot of thoughts come in to disturb you? See, we have to train to be able to do this in a masterful way. Of course, a lot of people have spontaneous out-of-body experiences, but to do it in a masterful way means you're doing it consciously. You're consciously having an out-of-body experience. It's not just, it happened, but I don't know how it happened. So he was teaching us that the first step is we have to be able to silence those thoughts coming from the subconscious that distracts our mind so we can hold a steady one point. But to do this, there's another practice where we're supposed to concentrate on two different points, about 3 feet away. You could put two candles of flames about 3 feet away. And you don't concentrate on them by looking at this one and then that one. You have to develop the skill of being able to hold rapt attention to both simultaneously. That's why it has to be kind of far apart. So that's one of the things. Sure. So it's the same thing for if you would try to create another body. Yeah, the human being at the soul level has ability of multiplicity. It can be in multiple places at the same time, and you can't tell any of these bodies. You could shake hands with them. I mean, it's not like some abstract thing. It's you could see them, and they would say they know exactly what the original, if you can say it that way, the original has. They're identical to each other. So, but again, how are you going to do that? How are you going to be in two places if you can't even hold your attention fixed on two locations at once? So this was the training. This is what he said. Thank you.
Once we self-realize that, we can become whatever we want to be. In the sense that we can be the animal, we can be the plant, we can be human beings, whatever we wish. So once we self-realize that, we can do whatever we wish, and it materializes immediately.
Did he ever say if the personality could be simultaneously aware of different forms? I presume he means, or is the higher soul mostly directing the other forms without much awareness? I presume he means these identical other multiplicity forms. You're not going to be able to do that until self-realization. But when you're in self-realization, the personality and the inner self is one. So there's just one thing. So it's both doing it when you reach that level.
Once we self-realize that, we can do. Okay.
All right. Hello. Okay, this is from Stephanie. I would like to know sometimes when someone is speaking about a loved one who's passed away, and when I'm concentrating or listening to them, I get goosebumps, even though I'm not afraid. Can you explain to me what is the reason for this? Are the past ones still trying to send messages or need help? I can pick up some intuition or messages sometimes from spirits, however, not fully yet. So praying for them is the best way. Yeah, praying and sending light, just white light for anybody passed over. Prayer is also good. The goosebump thing, I mean, it could be several things, but it's definitely a quickening of the etheric double of your material body. Now, is that quickening done by a non-physical being in the room, and that's how they attune to you? They come and they'll connect. You know that you can feel it. They're trying to connect with you. You can feel their energy, and oftentimes it creates goosebumps for sure. But other things can do it too. It's not. Don't just be thinking that that's my, Uncle Harry coming to say hi. It's it's it can be something you don't want to do. So that's why you say I can. She's saying she can get the messages from spirits, but again, be very careful, especially in the beginning, because it's about discernment. It's like there's lots of stuff in the world, but we have to discern what's best for us, whether it's food or anything. And it's the same thing with these spirits. There's a lot of spirits talk with you to be totally happy to talk to you and get your attention, because that's like food for them. And you listening to them, that energizes them. That's what the low ones want. That's why they hang around and try to attach to people. They want to draw energy off of them. So just be careful with that. But all you have to do is say a really good prayer and believe in that prayer. You have to, the belief part is so important, that you will be protected, and you will. Ask your guardian angel to help you discern the truth from the illusion. Mhm.
Yes. Please be careful, because in this dimension, when actually etheric counterpart of this dimension, when we really open our eyes clairvoyantly, then uncountable numbers of unclean, yes. I would like to continue. Uncountable numbers of spirit is everywhere, are everywhere. So once we are open all the time, that's gonna, they are going to suck your energy. So when when if you are doing a counseling or healing things, or when you are asked to work on those spirit, then we cleanse our body, and then a certain method we help to depart from that dimension to the higher dimension. But unless we are asked help, the prayer, then we should not open our eyes all the time. That's gonna, you're gonna have the trouble by doing that, because there are uncountable number of spirit around here, in here, when we can really see them.
Okay, last question, I guess. Stephanie's asking, how can I train myself to know when I look into someone's picture and place my finger on it and know if that person's alive or already passed over and away? I'll answer that one first. The reason we spoke a little bit about the three suns and the three bodies and why we're doing those three suns. And of course, the golden or yellow, canary yellow, is the noetical body, represents. Rosy pink is the emotional body. Sky blue, energy of the material body. When you put your finger on the picture, once you develop, it takes a long time of practice, again, to discern whether it's you're projecting it or it's coming from the picture. But if you can't see, I mean, if you're good enough to see, oh, I see a golden aura on this, around this person's head or on the picture, or a rosy thing around their heart, they're not alive. They're alive if you see the blue sphere. If you don't see the blue sphere, you know they're not in the material world, because they don't have a need for that anymore. And the secondary part to that question is, how can I know what's going on with their health if they ask me to find out? Again, it just takes so much. You just may get an intuition, I should say, about what's going on. Again, discernment's necessary. You may see dark areas around their heart, or maybe you see it up here, it's on their lungs. They've got a problem with their lungs. So you can see it as dark energy, but you can also feel it as strange vibration. It doesn't feel healthy. It feels there's something off. You feel that. I think, Aki, would you like to say something?
Okay, no. Okay.
We have to end it. It's kind of going long
Yeah.
now. So
Okay. Stephanie, he said sky blue part, so I want to repeat it to save time. But when you really attune, placing your finger, attuning yourself with the person, and you can see that person with the scenery behind the background. And when you see it more like see this kind of dimension, the blue color is one part, but the additional information, when you see the background like a three-dimensional world, it's more like they are still remaining here. But when you see that person and something which is not familiar to this dimension, they are in the other dimension. This is one of the barometer to tell they are departed or not. And the last one is yes, when you place your finger or attune with that person, the picture of that person, first of all, please ask guidance or teacher and invisible helpers and your own guardian angel. It might come by vision, as he described it, the black spot. You might be able to hear as the word, or you might sense it, the same part a little bit hurt or feel strange. So please be sensitive to your sense. After asking the help to your guardian angel, connecting with your guardian angel, then they will give you the proper information. And after you finish attuning with that, then cleanse yourself with three sounds meditation, and or just fill your body with white color light, and say thank you to them.
Now, all this, many of the questions touched on this kind of thing about trying to know things and opening up to know things. And there's so much deception going on in this. The only thing we can say is experience, practice, experience, and prayer over you. Before you do any of this, before you try to open up to get any knowledge, make sure you pray. Ask specifically God to help protect you from illusion. Because like I said, there's a lot of trickery going on when we first start opening up. And I think it's a little bit like what Christ said, I send you out as sheep among the wolves. That's basically what's happening with Daskalos' teaching. He's given us this information, but there's a lot of wolves out there. So we have to learn how to protect ourselves. We have to learn how to discriminate, and we have to learn how to purify our hearts. In other words, we're not doing this for our benefit. We're doing this to help someone. When your motivation's from goodness, you get protection. If you're doing it because you like the idea of it or something like that, it's not. You're doing it because you love somebody. So keep that in mind. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much for joining us. Happy Father's Day.
Father's Day.
See.